Greetings to all viewers and subscribers. You are on the Ruslan Belov channel. Today, March 6th, 2026, we are traditionally summing up and conducting a detailed analysis of the current geopolitical and military situation in the world. Over the past 24 hours, an enormous number of significant and at times pivotal events have taken place, all of which demand our close attention. Get comfortable. There is a lot of information ahead, so let us skip the unnecessary preamble and get straight to the breakdown of the situation. Let us begin our review with the hottest region on the planet at this moment, the Middle East. Here we are observing an extremely interesting dynamic of events. The countries that make up the so-called anti-Iranian coalition, which includes, let me remind you, the United Arab Emirates, the Sultanate of Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, as well as their key allies in the form of Israel and the United States of America, are beginning to encounter their first truly serious challenges and systemic problems. What was initially planned as a swift and effective campaign is starting to stall as it meets the harsh reality of war. The first warning sign was that Washington and Tel Aviv are already, just 1 week, into active operations, considering plans to reduce the intensity of missile and bomb strikes against Iranian territory. It appears that the next phase of the military operation will undergo significant changes in tactics. Iran and Israel will likely be forced to redirect their efforts and resources toward deeper and more thorough reconnaissance. The reason for this lies in the results of the first 7 days of the conflict, which, to put it mildly, turned out to be ambiguous. A massive amount of video evidence has appeared in the public domain showing how the coalition's expensive precision weapons are being wasted. We have seen footage of strikes hitting empty spots in the desert, hitting crudely made cardboard airplane decoys painted directly onto runways, or hitting fake launch platforms. The Iranian side masterfully employs camouflage and decoys, forcing the coalition forces to spread their attention thin and, most painfully, to burn through colossal stockpiles of ammunition, destroying what amount to elaborate dummies. This brings us to another critically important aspect, the financial one. If we turn to basic calculations based on publicly available data on the cost of weapons and logistics, we arrive at a staggering figure. The Pentagon is spending approximately $1 billion per day to conduct this operation. This is an astronomical sum, even by the standards of the United States defense budget. Confirmation of the seriousness of the situation comes from a recent address by Defense Secretary Hegseth, who urgently requested an additional $50 billion in funding to continue the military campaign. Simple arithmetic tells us that at the current rate of resource consumption, that money will last approximately 50 days of active combat operations. In other words, the United States is budgeting for at least 1.5 to 2 months of continued conflict at the same level of intensity. However, as experience shows, having money is no guarantee of victory. You can allocate $1 trillion, but the physical production of weapons has its own time and technological constraints. We are talking primarily about PASC-3 interceptor missiles for the Patriot air defense systems. The production rate at the factories of the American military-industrial complex cannot keep pace with the rate at which the Pentagon is prepared to write checks. Production lines are operating at full capacity, and scaling up output instantaneously is simply impossible. In this context, we are witnessing a catastrophic situation with ammunition expenditure among the Arab allies of the United States. In the first days of the conflict, countries such as the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait operated in a state bordering on panic. They were spending their scarce interceptor missiles in the most irrational manner possible, firing them off by the hundreds, as though the stockpiles in their warehouses were infinite. It seemed as though the air defense operators of these countries gave no thought whatsoever to the possibility that the missiles might run out. Quite telling in this context was the statement made by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Commenting on the situation in the Middle East, he cited shocking statistics. In just 6 days of the active phase of the conflict, the countries of the region fired approximately 800 PAC-3 interceptor missiles at targets. For comparison, Zelensky noted with bitterness that Ukraine, over 4 full years of full-scale confrontation with the Russian Federation, had not received from its allies as many missiles of this type as were burned through in the Middle East in less than a week. The primary reason for this overexpenditure likely lies in the insufficient training of the air defense crews of Qatar, Bahrain, and the Emirates. Though their motivation is understandable, the survival of their infrastructure is at stake. Videos are circulating online from Qatar showing local air defense forces attempting to intercept incoming Iranian missiles. Iran has targeted the most vulnerable points: energy sector facilities, military bases, and airfields. Tehran's tactics are simple but effective. They launch salvos of 5 to 6 ballistic missiles at a target. In response, the panicked air defense crews of Qatar or Bahrain fire as many as 15 expensive PAC-3 interceptor missiles. The ratio of ammunition expenditure ends up being not 3-to-1, but considerably higher, and many of the interceptors miss entirely. The logic of the Persian Gulf monarchies is clear: preserve their infrastructure at any cost. Their entire economy, their immense wealth, and their social stability are built on the extraction and export of resources. The destruction of oil refineries and terminals would set these countries back to the Stone Age. And now we are watching as, despite desperate attempts at defense, this infrastructure is being methodically destroyed. The situation is heating up not only on the battlefield, but also in the diplomatic corridors. For the Arab sheikhs, the shortage of missiles in the United States is not an acceptable excuse. They have issued Washington a firm ultimatum. Either the Americans guarantee the full security of their allies, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others, or these countries will begin a large-scale withdrawal of their capital from the American economy. We are talking about the cancellation of current investment projects and the repatriation of previously invested funds. Given the volume of Arab money in the American financial system, the implementation of this threat could trigger a severe economic crisis in the United States. But I repeat, the Americans' problem is not a lack of willingness, but a physical shortage of missiles. Production simply cannot keep up with the demands of a war of this intensity. In an attempt to somehow salvage the situation, Great Britain has stepped onto the stage. Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced the transfer of Ukrainian mobile air defense crews to the Middle East. These are the very specialists who, over years of war in Ukraine, have honed their skills at destroying Russian Garand-type Shahed kamikaze drones. These experts are supposed to help the Arabs build a more layered defense, so they stop shooting expensive million-dollar missiles at cheap mopeds. One such crew has already arrived in the region, and more deployments are expected. However, implementing a new system takes time, and time is precisely what the Persian Gulf states do not have. While the Ukrainians are teaching the Arabs to shoot down drones with machine guns, Iranian missiles may have permanently destroyed the region's oil industry. Markets are already reacting to this with panic. Oil prices are breaking multi-year records, with certain grades already trading at $90 to $95 per barrel. And analysts are predicting a surge to $150 if the escalation continues. Returning to the chronicle of combat operations, one cannot fail to mention the situation in Bahrain. Today, the internet has been flooded with footage from this island state that testifies to an outright catastrophe. We are seeing direct hits by Iranian ballistic missiles on key oil refineries and military installations. Based on the footage, Bahrain's air defense system has effectively ceased to exist. The missiles are simply not being intercepted. Sources, both Iranian and neutral, confirm that the stockpile of interceptor missiles in this small kingdom has been completely exhausted. The Iranians, sensing the weakness of their opponent, are hinting that this was merely a warm-up and that the main strikes are still to come. The videos show massive fires at American bases and industrial facilities that no one is able to extinguish. Beyond the military dimension, the threat of a humanitarian catastrophe and famine is looming over the region. The Gulf states are critically dependent on food imports by sea. According to some reports, the supply of fresh food products in the UAE, for instance, is sufficient for only 10 days. Unblocking the Strait of Hormuz within such a short time frame by military means is impossible. This puts the monarchies in an extremely vulnerable position. At the same time, contrary to the claims of Western propaganda, Iran has not lost control of its government. The structures of power are functioning, the army is following orders, and the country is demonstrating remarkable resilience. Kuwait has also become a casualty of the conflict. Its air defense system has either already been destroyed or is on the verge of collapse. The situation is so critical that the United States has decided to completely close its embassy in that country. Primary attention is now focused on the American Ali al-Salem Air Base, located to the west of Kuwait City. Satellite imagery is recording the aftermath of at least 20 missile strikes. Fire monitoring systems are showing anomalies across 20% of the base's territory, indicating large-scale destruction and ongoing fires. Thus, we can state that two members of the coalition, Bahrain and Kuwait, have effectively been left without any air cover. Qatar and the UAE are holding on for now, but their resources are nearly depleted. Saudi Arabia has so far gotten off relatively lightly, but its passivity may be temporary. The United States, for its part, continues to strike the Iranian fleet in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. But, as we have said many times before, airstrikes and naval operations alone are not sufficient to unblock the strait and defeat Iran. A full-scale ground operation and the establishment of a buffer zone are necessary. This is an axiom of modern warfare, confirmed, among other things, by the experience of the conflict in Ukraine. Without territorial control, it is impossible to stop rocket attacks. And this brings us to the most intriguing point. Reports are coming in of preparations for ground operations in northwestern Iran. But these preparations are being conducted with a kind of feverish haste, which is fraught with major problems for the attacking side. Videos have appeared online showing the transfer of American military equipment in northern Iraq directly to the Iranian border in areas controlled by the Kurds. It appears that Washington has decided to use Kurdish formations as a battering ram, as the first wave of the offensive, to probe Iran's defences in the difficult mountainous terrain. Iran, understanding this, is launching preemptive mass drone strikes against American bases in Erbil and forward airfields. Another player who has decided to enter the game is Azerbaijan. Reports are coming in of a concentration of Azerbaijani troops and equipment along the border with Iran. Border checkpoints are being closed, diplomats are being evacuated. All the signs indicate that Baku is preparing to open a second front against Tehran. Northwestern Iran is a region with a concentrated population of ethnic Azerbaijanis and Kurds, which makes it an ideal staging ground for destabilizing the situation from within with external support. The United States, according to leaks, has promised the Kurds and Azerbaijanis full air support, taking upon itself responsibility for aviation and long-range strikes. the Iranian side is responding with bold statements. They say they are actually welcoming the prospect of a US ground invasion, as it would give them a chance to inflict unacceptable losses on the Americans in close combat. But the Americans are shrewd and prefer to fight through proxies, sending the Kurds in first. Meanwhile, Tehran, understanding that its stockpiles of older missiles are not infinite, has begun deploying its newest developments. The use of ballistic missiles, with multiple independently targetable warheads against targets in Israel, has been recorded for the first time. This represents a qualitatively new level of threat, for which the Iron Dome and other systems may not be ready. The arms race is entering its most acute phase. Now let us move from the scorching deserts of the Middle East to Eastern Europe, where the Ukrainian crisis continues to generate news. Here a complex political drama is unfolding between Ukraine, Russia, Hungary, and Slovakia. The bone of contention is the Druzhba oil pipeline. Budapest and Bratislava, critically dependent on Russian oil, have moved to open threats against Kyiv. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán stated outright the possibility of using force to unblock the transit of oil. Zelensky's response was in the spirit of, "Your problems are not my problems." If Orbán cannot win re-election without cheap oil from Russia, then that is his personal tragedy. The situation escalated following a strange incident on Hungarian territory. A group of couriers was detained there, transporting an enormous sum of cash, approximately $100 million in various currencies, plus gold bars. The entire group was expelled from the country, and the money was presumably confiscated. Hungarian authorities are hinting that Kyiv was planning to use these funds for black schemes. If I may offer my subjective opinion, it is quite plausible that this money was intended to finance the Hungarian opposition and organise protests with the goal of overthrowing the inconvenient Orbán ahead of the elections. Adding a layer of intrigue to the situation is the fact that the head of the courier group turned out to be not a simple clerk, but an active duty serviceman of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, a former major of the Security Service of Ukraine. This caused genuine panic and hysteria in Kyiv, with demands for the return of the funds, but it appears these monies are lost to Ukraine permanently. Now to the overnight military report for March 6th. A large-scale exchange of strikes took place. Ukrainian forces attacked southern Russia, targeting Novorossiysk and energy facilities. There is confirmed information about a strike on the major 500 kilovolt Kubanskaya substation near the city of Abinsk. Based on photos and videos from the scene, the facility sustained serious damage. Maps showing the routes of Ukrainian drones have also appeared online. However, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported successful air defense operations, claiming the interception of 83 drones overnight. The Black Sea was also unsettled. A naval engagement occurred in the area of gas production platforms to the west of Crimea. Explosions and gunfire were captured on video. It is difficult to say with precision who was fighting whom, but there is a suggestion that Russian forces intercepted a group of Ukrainian unmanned surface vessels, naval drones, that were attempting to attack facilities in Crimea or ships of the Black Sea Fleet. Now let us move directly to the front line in the Donbas and other regions. According to official reports from the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Russian army continues to develop its success. For the second consecutive day, significant improvements in positions are being recorded on the northern face of the Donbas salient, in the area of Izium and Lyman. The combat map has changed. Yesterday there were reports of a breakthrough near the settlement of Yarovaya, and today news has come in of taking control of positions near the village of Sosnovoye. Analysing this data, one can conclude that Russian forces are approaching the finish line in the battle for the north of Donetsk Oblast. The settlements of Alexandrovka, Krimki, Korovy Yar, Rubtsy, Yatskovka, Lozovoye, and Volchy Yar are under threat of encirclement or capture. Fighting here has been prolonged and fierce, but it appears that the Ukrainian defensive line in this sector has begun to crumble. There are also minor changes on the Slavyansk direction. The map was adjusted to the west of Kuzminovka. This is based on video from the Ukrainian side showing them striking advancing Russian infantry, which indirectly confirms the advance of Russian armed forces in that sector. On the Zaporizhzhia front, positional fighting continues in the area of Vozdvizhivka and Verkhnya Tersa, but the front line here remains static for the time being, without significant changes to the map. On the northern section of the front, likely referring to the Kharkiv direction or the border area, the map looked stable on March 5th, but already on March 6th, reports came in that Ukrainian forces managed to conduct a local counterattack and improve their positions near the settlement of Danilovka. It should be noted that this information currently lacks visual confirmation or geolocation data, and should therefore be treated with caution. On the Dobropolye direction, the Pokrovsk sector, the Russian army continues to press. Active offensive operations are ongoing in the area of the settlement of Grishino. Reports of this are confirmed by pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian, and neutral OSINT analysts alike. Judging by the dynamics, Grishino will fall within the next few days and will come under full Russian control, which Konashenkov will likely officially announce very soon. On the Kostiantynivka sector of the front, a temporary lull has set in. The Russian offensive there has paused as forces regroup, bring up reserves, and rotate in the southern part of the city. This is most likely the calm before the storm, and assault operations are expected to resume with renewed force in the very near future. One additional matter deserves special mention: alarming information from a number of military experts. An anomalously high level of Russian reconnaissance activity has been recorded in the Sumy area. The number of reconnaissance drones and the activity of the electronic intelligence assets here significantly exceeds the average across the front. This may indicate that Russian command is preparing to open a new active front in the Sumy direction, and this sector may become a priority in the spring campaign. And finally, to close today's broadcast, some positive humanitarian news. Another prisoner exchange has taken place. The sides exchanged personnel on a 300 for 300 formula. 300 Russian soldiers have returned home to their families, and 300 Ukrainian servicemen have been sent to Kiev. Such events always inspire at least some hope that a thread of humanity can be preserved in this brutal conflict. That brings our review for today to a close. The team of the Ruslan Belov channel reminds you that we are categorically opposed to any form of violence and bloodshed. We sincerely hope that all parties to the conflicts will find the wisdom to sit down at the negotiating table and resolve their differences through diplomacy, thereby saving human lives. Thank you for being with us, for analysing and thinking alongside us. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like to help promote the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. All the best to you.